شلام ألوخن؟ أنا ريبيكا سايمون مجيبة يوداء شاميران قابلوخي ممشينا أرخن وديو إينا أربا جناي قد إينا شتسانت خام خفيانوتا ين exhibit بشمت tell our stories قد إيلا باسد قتلت آتوراي دانت بلاشا قامايا بإيدت أسماناي تركاي مشيتت ألبو تمانيامو إجي خمشة هل ألبو إجامو إسري خمشة أهم خفيانوتا هم زوملا باسط مجر أها قطلة بيشي لقوذمة ومن بار هذا مجر آتوراي أطرواتت أبهاته شويقونا وخيشنا دوتانه خين الدنيا أبور بزنة أهم خفيانوتا بت أويا جافت كال ستيت يونيفرسيتي ستانسلا جو تورلاك كاليفورنيا من يرخد خزيران هل طبخ من جون هل آغست شيت تريل بإسريخا وبدويا آزاد وخوراي قماي قد بيايلي آزل أهم زمتن دويا بليشانت إنجلس. Hello, my name is Rebecca Simon. On behalf of Shamiram Media, I welcome all of you. Our guests today are 4 organizers of an exhibit called Tell Our Stories. This exhibit is about the Assyrian genocide during World War II at the hand of the Ottoman Empire from 1895 to 1925, and about the aftermath of the genocide, how the Assyrians fled their homelands and went across the world and settled in various other continents and countries. This exhibit will be at the Cal State University Stanislaus in Turlock, California, from June to August of 2021. It will be free and open to all the public. I welcome all 4 of our guests. I would like to each one of you introduce yourselves and take about a minute to tell us about your background and how was it that you got involved in this project. We will start with Dr. Erin Hughes. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. We so appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Erin Hughes. I am an assistant professor at California State University Stanislaus in History and Political Science, and I'm also the project director for the Sargis Modern Assyrian Heritage Project. And we were so thrilled when Kathy and Hannibal and Ruth approached us about this incredibly important exhibit. We'll be showing it in our university art gallery. We'll be building a website to showcase it virtually as well. And so we were thrilled that they were able to approach us, that we could help bring this to life.
Thank you. And Dr. Ruth Kambar, please.
Hi, I'm a high school English teacher in Westchester, New York. But because I was interested in narrative and I come from an Assyrian background, I was very interested in how people construct identity through story. So I completed my Ph.D. at NYU studying such, and I recorded relatives basically for 10 years and analyzed those narratives. I got involved in this project because Kathy reached out to me, and I'm very interested and have broadened my connections to the Assyrian community through this project. So I am very pleased to be a part of it.
Thank you. Professor Hannibal Travis, please.
Thank you. I've been teaching law at Florida International University in Miami, Florida since 2005. I started writing about that same time on an analysis of the narratives that had been published during and after World War I of anti-Assyrian and anti-Chaldean persecution and massacres using international law concepts such as genocide, deportation, crimes against humanity, torture, and so forth. So I've published a series of articles, books, chapters, and an edited book on that topic. So I'll be helping the exhibit with archival material, memoirs, video testimonies that I can gather through other contacts, and I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to interview with you and of California State University's support of the project.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Kathy Sayed Zatari, please.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to join you this afternoon. I'm Kathy Zatari. I'm an attorney, live in Arizona. I have been involved in Assyrian advocacy work for many, many years now. And my interest in this project stemmed from many talks I had with the public. I found there was a real hunger to learn about this story, to see the actual exhibit items. And I thought what better place to be but the Turlock Modesto area to have an opportunity to make this exhibit. Ruth, Hannibal, and Erin have just done the bulk of the work, and they've done a heck of a job. I want to also thank Cal State University that have really stepped up. The Assyrian community should be very appreciative of their efforts as well. And so we're ready to go forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much for all the introductions about yourselves. And I believe, with the exception of Dr. Erin Hughes, everybody else has either part Assyrian blood in them or they're full-blooded Assyrians. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It's very nice. Dr. Hughes, what are you, as a director of this exhibit, Tell Our Stories, what is it that you'd like to accomplish?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a couple of goals with the project. As Kathy mentioned, you know, it's taking place in Turlock having one of the largest Assyrian populations in California and the US. And so part of it is for the Assyrian community here to learn more about the history, to central these stories, these narratives of survival and resilience. But it's also in part for the wider community here to help them understand who the Assyrians are, that helped build the Central Valley. And from that, to connect why language is so important, why culture is so important, why having Assyrian language ballots during elections and so many radio and TV stations, and why the Assyrian Festival and why all of these things that we see happening in the community are really so important to, you know, to the Assyrian community, the Central Valley, and California as a whole. So combination of that public education and, you know, for Assyrian in the community as well.
Why are you interested in the Assyrian cause, being a non-Assyrian person?
That's a great question. I don't have a simple answer to that. My doctoral work is on the Assyrian diaspora in the U.S. My background before that is working on nationalism and conflict and diaspora building and kind of all those elements. And the Assyrian story is one that is just so, I don't know the exact word, powerful, and I don't know the exact word, I apologize, but it's just something that I've spent a really long time studying and feel, you know, that's really important to help bring more light and attention to these issues.
Dr. Ruth Kambar, where did you get the funding for this exhibit? Things don't come free these days or at any time. How did you receive the funding, and can you say how much it cost you to put up this exhibit?
Well, I'd rather have Kathy answer that particular question because she knows, she can really speak to the specifics. For the application, I would prefer Kathy to speak to that, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. Okay, Kathy?
Certainly. Yes, we received just under $20,000 of grant funding from Cal Humanities, a California nonprofit organization whose mission is to spread so many areas and stories of California history through humanities. We had to do a one-to-one match to get those funding. Either we need to show we also had $20,000 in dollars, or an equal amount in services, actual participant time spent volunteering, etc. I will tell you that the vast majority of the work being done by Erin, Ruth, and Hannibal is volunteer. They work at very little, you know, travel, etc. The university stepped up in a big way, offering the gallery for the exhibit, the tech support. So much support went into this for us to get that $20,000. I am volunteering and am just going to do what needs to be done here to get it done. You see kind of the mix that went in to getting the funding and the work that needs to be done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Ruth Kambar, how large of an area is the exhibit going to be? Is it a theater? Is it a conference room? How big is the area? And where is it going to be held at the Cal State University Stanislaus?
I believe we're going to use the library that's being renovated. So I don't know the exact space. We are still collecting items for the exhibit. In order to secure the funding, we had to begin collecting, and we will have cases of items as well as documents. So some of the items might include clothing, articles, and so enough space to have people come in and be a part of it. We may even set up an area where there's a screen where people can see videos and recordings of interviews with Assyrians, some who are survivors that came over around the period from 1918, 1921, mostly 1921, and basically share documents, etc., artifacts.
Professor Hannibal Travis, do you know of any exhibits in the past of this kind anywhere?
I believe that in the European Parliament in 2005, they had a panel on the topic of SAFO and the quest for recognition. I don't know if they had any posters or documents put up, but I do believe that they showed some excerpts of documents and certainly discussed them. Other times that there might have been something would have been in Södertälje, Sweden. I believe they have an Assyrian Cultural Center. They may have exhibited some documents. There's something called the Mesopotamian Library close to that city, where a lot of Assyrian refugees from, I guess, Iraq and Turkey live primarily. And there may be something at the Illinois Holocaust Museum, but it's predominantly Armenian, their exhibit. So I don't know if there's... I do recall that at the time of a conference, almost 10 years ago, there were some posted articles about the Semele massacre and so forth. But other than that, I can't think of any.
I'd like to jump
Kathy.
in. Ruth did an exhibit herself, a one-woman exhibit. And I would be interested to hear exactly what she put on. I know some of it, but Ruth, I mean, you had essentially a one-woman project in New York.
Well, two women. I work with Kathy Yako Skura, who's an Assyrian artist, and she actually approached me to do an exhibit. Because I'm not an artist, what I contributed was the artifacts. Many photos. I've collected photos for years. I was handed a family archive, and in these documents, in these artifacts, we even had dirt from Urmia in Persia, when someone, who happens to be a relative of mine, my grandmother, was running, and she bent down and grabbed some of the dirt just so that she could take it with her. She did end up in Bakuba and then eventually to the United States, but not after losing a sister and her aunt in the Great Running.
Dr. Kambar, are you thinking about having a CD made of your exhibit for anyone else around the world who hasn't seen or wasn't able to see the exhibit, to at least see the CD of all the items on display?
We've been talking, Kathy and I have also been talking about, and with Erin and Hannibal, about the university having a website, so a virtual museum. But I am also writing a proposal for a Images of America book through Arcadia Publishing. I published Assyrians of Yonkers, and we'd like to do one, basically a catalog of the exhibit as well.
Hannibal Travis, do you know who your speakers will be? Will you be one of the speakers?
I don't think we've prepared a program yet. I imagine there will be an opening day. I attended the opening day of the Pontian Genocide Museum or exhibit in Thessaloniki, Greece, and they had several speakers from the government and from academia. They have a chair of Pontic Studies or Pontian Greek Studies in Thessaloniki. So there could be a program like that. I imagine there was also a program in the European Union, European Parliament panel on SAFO. And I've participated in a number of other SAFO and Armenian genocide conferences over the years, so I've seen generally how such a program tends to be put together.
Kathy Sayat Zatari, what are the size of the items that you are asking people to give to you? I mean, is there a limit on how large the items can be?
I think in terms of the size, the parameters of the space will cause some limitations, but I do want to tell all your viewers this. The size to submit things to be considered is not an issue. From very tiny pieces of jewelry to very large photos, documents, I would not want to discourage anyone who would have something larger. Perhaps we can scan it and make something small enough to fit the exhibit. But the range is huge, from wedding documents, baptismal, property documents, old photos, actual relics. I have some jewelry, clothing, some clothing a woman made in the camp, a friend of my grandmother. And that will be almost a whole case in itself. Many, many things. I would just say each item for your viewers, don't worry about the size or if they have something, and later in the program you'll be giving them a link where to send items. Send us pictures. That's okay. Send us a scan or a picture of what you have.
Dr. Erin Hughes, if people send the actual document or item to you, what the precautions have you taken in safeguarding those items? Because they're invaluable, as you know.
They absolutely are. And that's why we would, when people contact us with things that we might like to include, there'll be a process before we do that. And we'll evaluate if it makes more sense to have a photocopy or a photo or something of the item rather than doing that. If we do decide that we want to feature the exact item, obviously everything will be insured. We'll have climate-controlled storage that will be in. They'll be under lock and key during the duration of the exhibit, and then immediately sent to insured during the exhibition. And all of those precautions that need to take place. But obviously, we'll be evaluating to make sure that we can keep it safely before we, actually request natural items from anyone. Like Kathy said, otherwise we may look at doing 3D replicas or photographs or things like that.
Hannibal Travis, so you are limiting this exhibit only for the atrocities, documents related to atrocities happening in World War I. The Ottoman Empire committed genocides at that time, and so those are all the documents you need. You don't need anything before or after. Is that correct?
Well, the proposal covers a somewhat broader period of time, and also geographically covers the refugee and displaced persons flows as a result of the persecutions, not only in 1914 to 1918, but also 1894, 1896. And there was sort of some sporadic events between 1896 and 1914. So there's a recent book called The 30-Year Genocide, referring to basically 1895 to 1925. So that's kind of the rough period. But I think it would be relevant also the Bakuba refugee camp has been mentioned. It was existing in the 1920s under the British Mandate, and it sort of leads up to the events of the Samela massacre, and there was people fleeing both Takari in the 1920s and Upper Mesopotamia, Iraq in the 1930s. So I would think that any documents or physical artifacts or photographs from late 19th century, early 20th century, even really up until 1950 would be relevant, or even after, because people who took pictures in 1960 when they got a camera, they could have come in 1930s, or they could have been affected by these events in the 1920s, even though they took the picture in the 1960s. So I wouldn't say that only documents or photos from 1910s are relevant.
Okay. Dr. Kambar,
yes.
What are some of the examples of the items that you would like people to send to you?
We have memoirs. We're collecting memoirs. So even if you don't have an original that someone sat down to write about their own experience, if you've heard stories from your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and you can commit them to text, that's helpful. Items of clothing, samovars, purses, and books, photos, and, as I said, I mentioned dirt. I mean, who would think, right? But in my collection, I actually have some documents from a mission that affected Urmia, and actually the receipts to the Royal Bank of Persia, etc. And I have the documentation of how that actual mission fell apart because of what was happening. Letters from some of the missionaries that also had to flee, that were dealing with our people. Anything that really documents struggle or life as either where they started and where they ended up. I have an article someone wrote about the 1800s and having their parents killed as Kurds came in and attacked the household, and how he hid under the table in his home with his sister. And, they were adopted by missionaries. So those documents we have. So anything that really shows why this community is so dispersed will serve our purposes.
Will you accept video testimonials?
Yes, absolutely. And we actually have some being contributed from a professor out in California, from Turlock actually, and Ariana Ishaya. And also I'm working on an oral history project right now with the Yonkers Public Library, and we are recording testimonies of Assyrians in Yonkers. And apparently the word has gotten out. So people who want to be recorded by us, we can also make that available. So it's all about telling those stories.
Thank you for saying that. And of course, like you said, no part of the history that we Assyrians can provide to this exhibit is small. Everything is significant and is telling a story somewhere, somehow, to someone. So please, anything that you have, please contribute. It will give a story. It may not be interesting to you. It is interesting to the rest of us. Well, I thank all four of you really for an endeavor that has been missing, at least in California. I have been looking for it, and this is the first for me, and I will definitely go see it. It's a worthy cause. It's an awareness. Like I've always said, the Assyrian genocide is one of the least known genocides in the world, and it's a lot of times denied. And I cannot thank you enough for organizing it. And what I like the best in what you're doing, besides the mission, is that you're working a year in advance. So you're giving yourself plenty of time to plan it properly, market it, and gather items. And that is a formula for success. We will for sure try our hardest to get the word out. And before the exhibit starts, which is in June, and between June and August of 2021, we will again market it and remind people to go and see what's happened to us. I thank you very much, and you all take care.
Thank you, Rebecca.